Welcome to The Stacks, a podcast about books and the people who read them. I'm your host, Tracy Thomas. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome author, musician, and screenwriter James McBride. James is the National Book Award-winning author of The Good Lord Bird and longtime New York Times bestseller, The Color of Water. James's newest book is Deacon King Kong, which is the current selection for Oprah's book club. Hello. Today, we talk about art, history, music, and so much more. If you're looking for ways to amplify the stacks and help me to continue making this podcast, here's what you can do. You can use the link in the show notes to shop for your books. You can subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. You can use the stacks code with our partners like Libro FM, and you can follow us on social media. If you still want to do more, you can join us on Patreon. It's a monthly subscription that funds the show and gives you perks like our monthly virtual book club. I want to give a little love to some of our newest members of the Stacks Pack. Shayna Austin, Steph Brown, Jorge M., Alyssa Jakunski, Katherine Scrivener, Catherine Aker, Henny Hamilton, Joyce DeVrack, Lisa Pujuan Numura, Jean Krasilnikov, Claire, and Michelle Ryle. Thank you all so much for your continued support of The Stacks. I could not do it without the Stacks Pack. All right, let's get on with the show. Here's my conversation with James McBride. All right, I am here today with James McBride. James, we're so happy you're here today. Thank you for making the time for The Stacks.
Well, I'm glad to be here at The Stacks.
And we'll start where we always start in about 30 seconds or so. Can you tell us about Deacon King Kong?
Well, Deacon King Kong is about a deacon from a small Baptist church in Brooklyn who goes out one day, gets lit up with alcohol, and ends up shooting the worst drug dealer in the projects. And the resulting activity is really where the story is.
Yeah, and it's a kind of a crazy, fun romp with lots of different characters, which I definitely want to get to some of the characters later. But I am curious, as someone who's a prolific writer and you've been a journalist and you're a musician and you kind of are just an artist, if you will, how do these stories come to you? How do you decide what you want to write about?
Well, I like people, I mean... I'm like Barbra Streisand. People who need people are the luckiest people in the world. No, I just like stories, and so I look for them all the time. Usually stories that involve some element of humanity or conflict that push people in directions that are uncomfortable and amusing to watch or informative to learn from. That's where I kind of head as a writer.
Yeah, and I think you do a great job of bringing out the humanity of different kinds of people in your writing. I think a lot of people would say that's something that you're known for, is the way that you can humanize all these different types of people, that there's no one that you're not willing to kind of talk about or talk to. I'm curious, historical fiction. Why historical fiction?
Because I like it, and because I think there's a lot to be learned from history, and it's nice to translate historical fiction it's nice to translate history into something that people can relate to and learn from and understand from. So,
is it a genre that you like to read yourself? Or I know you're a prolific reader. I just recently watched you and Jason Reynolds talk the other day, and you were pulling out all these books. So I'm curious.
Yeah, I read a lot of history books all the time. I very rarely read novels, although I was just talking about Stephen King, who I really admire. But I generally just read history books all the time, because this, I'm looking to better inform myself about how people are and what people would or might or can do.
Yeah. And then you kind of take that information that you're learning and turn it into a novel or something. Is that
well,
kind of
sometimes, or just sometimes, you just have to know how to respond to. Characters have to move in a world, and they have to move in a place, and you have to set that place up properly. Otherwise, it just won't work. And in order to do that, you really have to know what's going on in the world. Does the milkman still deliver milk in the year 2020? Probably not, but he certainly did in 1955 in Dorchester, Massachusetts, probably, or certainly in 1945. So
right.
You can't write about a milkman unless you know what a milkman does and where he would be and what year he would be doing it in, and so on and so forth. Otherwise, what happens is the story just deteriorates into, and then this happened, and then that happened, and then this happened, and then that happened. That's not really how good stories work. Good stories connect.
And for people who aren't familiar, you are a musician. You are a fantastic, you teach music at the church that you are at in Brooklyn. And I know a lot of people ask the question of how is music and writing similar and how did those things work together for you? But what I'm actually more curious about is what are the major differences for you? Where do they kind of draw apart and you have to use different parts of your brain and your thinking and your craft?
Well, music is not quite as free as writing because, at least the kind of music I play.
Right.
Because there's, you're dealing with a 16-bar form or a 32-bar form, or you're dealing with a form that requires a certain level of expertise and training to execute, and you're doing it in a way that people have been doing for a long time and people can do really well now. And so what distinguishes your music from the next guy's music is the ability of to place your life force into the music. That means that's why when you hear a guy who's 17-year-old playing 17 or 19 playing the trumpet, he just doesn't have the same feel as a guy who was maybe 30 or 40 or 60, or a guy who grew up in the 60s and who plays, because there's a life force, a life experience that goes to that. Writing, on the other hand, you're only limited by your imagination and your ability to technically place people in a room and move them from one room to the next. If you're really good, you can do that in ways that are really unique to you, and that don't require the same. You're not bounded by these 12 notes that at least in Western music that musicians are confined to.
And when you're writing, I mean, in Deacon King Kong, there's such a rhythm to the writing. There's these like staccato sentences and then these long kind of winding passages. And I'm curious how you find your way into the rhythm of your own writing, if that's something that changes, depending on your mood, or if that's part of the world that you create and how you find that.
Well, I don't think about that at all. I just write the story. I mean, you don't fall in love with your words. You fall in love with your ideas. Whatever words work, then those are the words that work. But if, the long sweeping passages, and I mean, Jim Harrison wrote a book. I think one of his books, I think the first paragraph lasted like 4 pages or something. But Jim Harrison, he could pull that off. He was a gifted writer. You just whatever is there. I mean, however you can get to the mainland. You have to be good enough in terms of your reporting skills and your research skills to make sure that you have enough information to fire the weapon. But once you have the information and you can fire, you shoot with whatever. If you pull the trigger and water comes out, well, maybe that's what you need to hit the mosquito with. You don't need a shotgun to kill a mosquito. You need mosquito spray. So you load the gun up with that and hit him with that. Or if you miss and he bites you, then you've still got a story. You got some movement, you have action, you have activity, motion, and so forth. Right.
And when you sit down to start writing, or when you sat down to kind of get started on actually putting these ideas to paper for Deacon King Kong, at least, how much of what is in this published book, how much of that is where you started? How much of the story is what you intended to write, and how much of it kind of changed throughout your process?
A lot of it changed throughout the process because the characters begin to carry the story. They pick it up and they just start lifting it along. You have 4 or 5 main characters that you want to deal with, and you try to push in on them at the top and then let them roll out into ancillary characters. And then at a certain point, plot begins to pick up the whole. It's just like an ant who carries a piece of coffee cake, at some point, he or she or whatever they call themselves, they just pick the whole crumb up and carry it like a boulder to the mother bee or mother ant. And so, you try to just create characters that will connect. And if they connect properly, then you don't have to create anymore. You're just following.
Is there ever a conflict between you and the ideas that you have as the author kind of going into the work versus the you that's actually writing and dealing with the characters? Like, do you ever get in your own way sometimes? Like, you have an idea that you think is really great, but then you try to write it and your characters are like, this is not working for me.
That happens all the time. That happens every day. I mean, I can't get out of my way to go to the bathroom, right? I mean, I'm just fumbling along. We don't know. You just rise up to whatever the character is, and you try to meet them in midair and do your little ballet dance. And then when you're done, when they vanish, when they shoot off, you settle down and you say, well, that was the extra experience, or you say that was just, that wasn't so good. But you have to surrender yourself to the story and to the idea and to the inner idea, which is usually, in my case, is the humanity of people and how ridiculous people are when it comes to labeling themselves or their work or what they do, and all those stuff.
Do you feel pressure to write something that is going to be successful because you've had so much success? And if you do, what does it mean what does success mean to you? Well,
no, I don't feel success. I don't feel the pressure to write something successful because I feel lucky now. I mean, look, if it stopped for me right now and I just vanished into obscurity, I mean, what do I have to complain about,
Yeah.
I don't look. I don't read reviews, and I don't follow. I don't care what anybody else does. I'm happy for someone else if they become successful, and it's such a tough business and writers are so unappreciated that I often find myself wondering how I got to this level. I mean, you look at someone like, I don't know, I'm going to think of 10 people, Rachel Kushner. Just there's so many really talented writers who don't get enough attention. I just happened to be in the room when God coughed, and I was the one that had a handkerchief, really. I mean, I didn't write books to be successful. I wrote them to make money and live. And
right.
It just so happened that, I came along at a time when a writer like me could make a living at it. I mean, if I had been born 10 years before, or 20 years before I was born, I'm sure that I would not enjoy this level of success. I was just talking to him yesterday about John A. Williams, who wrote The Man Who Cried I Am. I mean, he was as good as any writer out there. And he never became really that famous, but, writers know who he is. And there are tons of people who, Henry Roth, who wrote Call It Sleep, is a wonderful book. I mean, there's just so many writers that I just got lucky. I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to apologize for being successful, but it's awfully nice.
Yeah.
And so, you try to spread the love a little bit and just be grateful for what has happened, what has happened for you,
Right. And that's a lot of, outside people telling you that they appreciate your work. But how about you when you finish a book? How do you reckon with what you think of your work? How do you know when you're done,
Look, once I write something, I never want to read it again. I have no interest in it at all. I have no interest in looking at it or talking about it or thinking about it. I've enjoyed these characters so much. I'm so happy that they gave me some peace in the times that we were working together and living together. But once the book is done, I have no interest in it. I never talk about characters with other writers and, my character ate an apple and it got stuck in her throat. Wow, oh mine's had some catnip and he swallowed it. I mean, I don't care. I'm so busy trying to keep, what happens is when you're an artist, whatever kind of art you do, there's a fire burning in your soul. How you quench that fire and keep it from destroying you that's called art. And that's really what you do to keep yourself right. That's all it is. You can't focus on anything else other than that. If you go outside of that, then you're moving out of your comfort zone.
Is there anything that you've ever written that you feel particularly proud about having written?
Well, I mean, I'm not ashamed of it. I mean, I've written some bad stuff. I mean, I like all of it.
I just mean, is there anything that you think, for me, sometimes with this podcast, I'll make an episode and I'll be like, wow, that's exactly like what I set out to do. I feel like that really fulfilled what my hope was for that conversation. And then sometimes I don't ever think about the episode ever again. So I'm just curious if there's any things that you've written that you feel like, wow, that really fulfilled what I had hoped it would be for me personally.
No. I mean, I thought after I wrote The Color of Water that I would always be seen as this, mixed race guy writing about race and, woe is me. Should I eat chicken or should I eat matzo ball? What should I do? And I always felt that was just an unfair characterization of who I was as a human being. So when I became successful as a fiction writer, there was great satisfaction in that, because for a writer like me, particularly an African-American writer, you're always battling this whole business of, I'm the gorilla in the window. I lived a terrible life. You know, there were junkies everywhere. My mama did, my daddy, but, you know, it's just the whole psychosis of this negative stereotype of black life. But I made it, and thus I'm cool. And that's really, really been toxic for the creative element for many, many black writers. I mean, if I'm driving to L.A., and I have to get in the car and drive to L.A. from New York, well, you know, you'd say, what kind of car are you driving? And I'd say, oh, well, it's a, you know, station wagon. What year is it? It's a 2015. How many miles is it? Oh, it's got about 50,000 miles. And we had to check. That's good. Brakes are good. Tires. Okay, cool. Then it's about the drive. So race is the car, but the drive is the drive. Now, which one do you want to deal with? Do you want to deal with the car, or do you want to deal with the drive? Personally, I prefer to deal with the drive. Rationally, and in real life in America, you're always dealing with the car when you're black. That's just how it is. So now you have to decide whether you, as a person, as an artist, are going to deal with the car or the drive. I'm always interested in the drive. I'm not interested in the car. I know who I am. And you do that, you'll be all right, no matter what your race, sex, gender, sexual preference, whatever.
Right. I also have a white Jewish mother and a black father, though my mom did not convert to Christianity. So reading your book was definitely like, this feels like so familiar in so many ways, and obviously so different. But it's interesting because even if you focus on the drive as the artist, doesn't matter necessarily, because you can't control how other people perceive your work or see your work or deal or interact with your work. And I think for me, as someone who has been an artist and creator, that's always been really challenging. I wonder if that has also been something that's challenging for you, or if you just are really able to just focus on the drive and say, you can talk about the car all you want.
That's about it. I mean, I don't care what people, I mean, I like, look, be happy. What difference does it make? I mean, it's real simple. I mean, people can say what they want to say. I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, I don't know what to say. When my mother had her kids, she was way out. She was considered way, way out. And she never felt unhappy. She was a happy person. It never bothered her when people call her nigger lover and all. She didn't care. It went right over her head. It wasn't like there was a politically correct thing. She didn't care. She just dealt with what made her happy, and you know, being married to my father, my stepfather, having all these kids. And she was a poor woman who was very happy. So what would you rather do? Rather be happy, or know all these little facts and little niblets of nonsense that really are just a waste of time and make yourself unhappy with? If someone wants to do that, it's not hurting me.
Right.
If they want to hurt themselves with that, then go right ahead. Just make sure you vote. I don't care what. I don't want to hear this other stuff, man. I'm not interested in that. Vote, and make the world better. Stop. That stuff. Some of that stuff is just details. When you die, nobody's going to say, "Oh, tell me the story of the Jewish people." No, you're going to be hoping your lungs can wheeze. Are the black people here? You're not going to be worried about that. And people are dropping dead from COVID right now, and we got a president who's running around like a moron. I mean, that to me is a pretty big story.
Yeah.
That story is bigger than race. Yes. Again, that's the car and driver story. Okay.
Yeah.
You can focus on the fact that the guy is that New York, lovely liberal New York, created like the great racist president, or the fact that we knew he was there all the time. Or you can focus on the fact, what do we need to do to improve? And I'm very proud of these young people who are saying, we don't even have that frame of reference. And we're out here kicking it hard, and we Black Lives Matter. It doesn't matter whether I'm white or not. This is how I feel, and that's like someone dropping rain on the desert. For those of us who are old enough to remember that this whole thing of cops shooting black and poor people and Latino people is as old as I am and older. So change is good. It's coming.
Yeah. Gosh. No, Yeah, that's really beautiful. I mean, I'm moved by that. Valentine's Day is upon us, and I've got love on the brain. Love for books. Duh, of course. Hello. Did you forget what podcast you're listening to? I love bringing you all great reads, exclusive author interviews, and behind the scenes book gossip. But I can only do that with your support over on Patreon and Substack. Our Stacks Patreon community, also known as the Stacks Pack, is where you can go for book club meetups, a private, very active Discord, and a year-long mega reading challenge to help you achieve all your reading goals. Plus, you also get that monthly bonus episode. Now, over on the Substack, you can subscribe to my newsletter, Unstacked, where I keep the book conversations going. I also give you a healthy dose of sports and pop culture, definitely some hot takes happening over there. And again, that bonus episode. If you don't have a few dollars to spare, don't worry. There are free options on the Substack and the Patreon to get you a little extra Stacks magic. Making this podcast is a total team effort, and by supporting my Patreon and my Substack, you allow me to support my amazing team that makes the show possible every single week. So if you or your friends are looking to meet other book lovers and support this indie podcast, come hang out with me on Patreon, Substack, or both. I would love to have you. And since we're talking about love, you can gift subscriptions to the Patreon and the Substack for that special reader in your life. For the Stacks Pack, head to patreon.com/thestacks. And for the newsletter, head to traceythomas.substack.com. And also, there are links to both in the show notes. Okay, see you in the Stacks. This is a total shift. We're going to shift back to the book, though we may come back to this topic, but I have to know how you name your characters. I know you get this question all the time, but there's so many great names in Deacon King Kong. Obviously, there's Deacon King Kong, there's Deems, there's Elefante. Like, there's just so many really fun characters. So how does that come to you?
Oh, I don't know. It's just they're characters from some of them I knew. There was a real hot sausage I knew as a kid. You know? Some of it's just names that just pop up. You know, I carry a little notebook with me everywhere. I write down things I hear. You know, names are often in objects, you know. In all of America, particularly in communities where people have to live closer together, that would be lower income people or so-called poor people, there's a plethora of really, really good names. Now, in the old days, when I say the old days, 50s, 60s, 70s, the names were a little bit better. Nowadays, the nicknames to me are not as good. I mean, there's nothing that, you know, like the name Traquan doesn't really, to me, sound like a great name. It sounds like a name somebody made up. But, you know, now Traquan has a certain ring now because of what happened in Florida, so it's different. But there are some names, like I used to know a kid named I'm Unique. Now, why would you name a kid I'm Unique, really? I mean, this guy's going to go, when he's 35, he's going to go for a job interview. He's going to say, excuse me, I'm Unique. I'm Unique Johnson, yeah. I don't think that there's no real magic in a name like that. I think in the old days, at least to my recollection, I'm probably wrong, it just seemed people had really better nicknames. And so
yeah.
I just looked at those, you know. I mean, let me ask you something. Is Beyonce a real name? I mean, would you name your daughter Beyonce?
I wouldn't. But
look, let me just clarify. I might not name my child Beyonce, but if she was Beyonce, I'd be quite happy.
I mean, please. I mean, could you imagine being disappointed in Beyonce?
you know, I don't know. I mean, the name is just a label in a book. That's all. It's just a label.
When you come up with the names, because they're so, I mean, especially in this book, they're like so evocative and exciting. I know for some authors, they put a placeholder name in and then eventually they go back and change it. For you, do you create your characters with their names or do their names kind of change throughout the book ever? No, I create the character and the name evolves. Sometimes I have to change the name, but usually once I get the name, the last name will change. Okay. Sometimes. Yeah. But usually the first name stays. How about when you're writing? Where do you write? How do you write? Do you have music on? Do you have snacks or beverages? Like, what's your setup like for your writing life?
Oh, I just get to it. I mean, ain't no music, snacks, and all that. I snack later. I get up at 4. I hit it. I go until, I get up at 4 and I allegedly exercise, but I don't really. I mean, it's just do a few twists and bends, and then I lay on the floor and look at my cat while I'm supposed to be doing sit-ups, and then I get moving, and then I work until usually about 10. Then I take a little nap of poo. Take a little nap of poo for about 20. Then I get up and hit it again. By 11, 12 o'clock, it's over. But I do it pretty consistently, and I don't sit by a window looking out over the sea and all that. I mean, I can write anywhere. I can write on a bus. These self-driving cars are great because I'm going to get one day just so that when I have a note in my mind, I can just take my hands off the steering wheel and just write them. Write the ideas down, because I oftentimes have ideas a lot of times when I drive and I can't write them down right. I just, you can't do it. You got to hang on to the wheel. But I'm not a big texter and all that, the internet and all that. I don't do that too much. So I don't distract myself. So it's not hard for me to get to work. I'm so used to it,
Yeah. Do you remember what sort of stuff you were reading or listening to or watching or whatever when you were writing Deacon King Kong? What sort of stuff was kind of in your psyche?
I really don't. I don't even know how I started writing the book. Honestly, I don't even remember how. I don't even remember, I can tell you why in a general way why I wrote it, but I really don't even remember how it just started. It was just, I wrote the first graph maybe 40 times. And once it was right, I said, I can move in. And then the rest of the story just began to show itself. I take the spiritual approach to it and also the practical approach. The practical approach is that if I can't read it, if I'm not interested in reading, it ain't no good. And if I have to push myself to read it or say, oh, the reader will get it, if they can just get to page 12, then forget it. I have to be, I have to really be engaged right away, personally myself. Otherwise, if I'm not engaged with the character, I don't think the reader. I go with character, not story. Right. Stories come and go. Characters are the magic. Right.
That's the practical. What's the spiritual?
Well, the spiritual is you just give it to God and just ask Him to help you, get through it so that you be yourself at the end of it, because it takes a little piece out of you. And, you don't want to give everything away. You want to save a little bit for yourself.
Right. I'm super curious. You were part of the Rock Bottom Remainders, which is a music group of other writers. There's a bunch of you kind of who played together. And I'm curious what it's like as someone who is a musician professionally, also to play music with a bunch of authors. Is it a different process? Do people approach it different?
Oh my God. Well, look, they're all my friends. And so I don't want to say bad things about my friends. And my general attitude about all this stuff is if you can't say something about someone when they're in the same room, you ought not say it. So, if I were ever to meet Beyonce, I'm going to have to explain, why did you say, because I wouldn't give I just want to go back to that for a minute. I think there's a fascination with the French culture that exists in our country that is having lived in France, I can tell you that they ain't really so cool as we think they are. That's the first part of it. But the second part of it, playing with the Rock Bottom Remainders, they really can't play too good, but they're good people,
Sure.
I call that the reverb band because they're always screaming for more reverb. That's going to help. That's like polishing. Look, if you're polishing dung, it's still dung.
Yeah.
I mean? If it's mule dung, if you put shellac on it, it's still going to look pretty bad. So that's reverb for the Rock Bottom Remainders. But they're a really fun band. And they got a couple ringers in there who are really musicians too, the drummer and the sax player, the other sax player. And they play, professional players. So and some of them can they can really. A few of them can really play. But it's not you're not going to catch them playing Sonny Rollins music or John Coltrane or Bach.
Right.
Bach.
Right. Is there anyone that you can remember that inspired you to want to write?
Oh William Saroyan wrote a book called The Human Comedy. I loved it. And Kurt Vonnegut, when I was a kid, I loved his work. And Ralph Ellison, Invisible Man. But those were the big ones, I think. Oh, and To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. That was, I always felt, I still feel that Harper Lee was just so good. I mean, I know some people have some politically correct views about that book and all. I mean, I don't even know how to engage. Honestly, I really don't. I mean, when someone does the best they can, then the best thing you can do is say, all you can do is say thank you. We have forgotten how to forgive each other, and we've forgotten how to give people room to say, I made a mistake, And until we do that, we're not going to really improve.
Yeah, giving people the grace and the space. When you were younger, oftentimes I've asked this question about what made someone want to be a writer, who made someone want to be a writer. And a lot of the times I hear back that people didn't even know it was a job you could have when they were younger. Do you remember if you knew that it was something that you wanted to do from a young age and you knew it was a possibility for a job? I
had no idea about that. My aim was after college was to be a journalist because I got involved in the Nelson Mandela apartheid movement. We're going back to 1979 now. This is when nobody in America knew who Nelson Mandela was. Very few people. And in fact, there was a reporter at the Village Voice, which was the newspaper back then. I think it was Wayne Barrett. It might have been Thelani Davis, but it was one of those really, really good reporters, writers there. And they had their phone number unlisted because in those days, if you've had a phone, there were no cell phones. If someone wanted to find you, they could call up an operator and say, what's such and such's number, and the operator would give you that number. But if you didn't want anyone to find you, you could give them any number. You can give them any name, and you could have your phone listed under that name. And this writer it was a man, he had his name listed under Nelson Mandela. That's how little people knew of who Nelson Mandela was. But I was at Oberlin, and Oberlin, we all knew who Nelson Mandela was, and I got interested in journalism because of that. And then I ended up going to Columbia University to go to graduate school for journalism, and then that led to being a reporter for 9 years. I worked for the Wellington News Journal, the Boston Globe, People Magazine, the Washington Post. And then after I left the Washington Post, I was a musician for 9 years. And I started to write my first book during that time.
Would you ever go back to being a journalist?
No. No, I teach. I teach a class at NYU, journalism.
That's my alma mater. I went to NYU.
Right? Wow. Go Violets. All right, can you sing the Violet song? I can sing it. Here we are, the Violets are here. And no, that's not the NYU theme song.
I don't think I would know the NYU theme song if you sang it to me right now. I would have no idea.
Look, most people don't even know the NYU mascot.
Well, so when I was there, I think it still is. Now they're the Bobcats.
Yeah, but what about the Violets?
So they were the Violets, and then they changed the name to be the Bobcats. And I found out when I was there that the Bobcat mascot, do you know where it comes from?
No.
The system of the library at NYU
Wow,
is the Bobcat. And it's the library catalog system or whatever is how the new name came from. But I think I don't know why they got rid of the Violets.
Well, look, it's not like NYU is going to be,
right.
Going to look at the SEC, whatever that
no.
is. I don't even know what it is. I know people talk about it with their hats cocked sideways and their shorts beneath their ankles. They go, yeah, with the SEC. I don't even know what the SEC is, but you won't find NYU in it, that's for sure. Whatever it is, they ain't going to be doing football in the SEC.
We don't even have a football team at NYU.
No, but college football and all that in New York is not really popular.
Doesn't exist. Yeah, no. That was one of the trade-offs of going to theater school, was to saying, okay, I guess unless I go to Michigan, I'm not really going to get that college experience.
Well, let me ask you something. Now, we haven't had college football all year, however long we've been in this major pandemic. We haven't had any sports. And you know what? I feel fine. I'm not missing any of it. I don't miss any of these talking heads, these jive talking, Charles Barkley. I don't miss any of these people. I mean, think about it. And I used to listen to the radio, the NBA stuff all the time. And at a certain point, as the politics of our era, began to delve into fascism, straight out fascist behavior, sports became irrelevant.
Yeah.
And other than the quarterback from the San Francisco quarterback who
Colin Kaepernick
and a couple other people like LeBron James, I don't care about any of it because it's so irrelevant. People are dying and getting shot for nothing, and kids are going. We have a military-industrial complex. You get followed by the cops now. You're just so. I don't know who's scared of me or the cops. You go down the road, you don't know who's more afraid, them or you. And so this is, it's not a good scene. So it doesn't seem like sports is really that relevant.
I miss sports. Like I miss having the distraction to my day sometimes, like I miss being able to turn on a game and watch something, but I don't miss the talking heads. I don't miss all the content that's generated from sports, but I definitely miss being able to just watch something and the competition. But I do think, to your point, that without sports, a lot of people are paying attention to a lot of other things. A lot of people are reading things that they would never have picked up, or paying attention to art in a different way. So for that, I'm very grateful as someone who has obviously a passion for reading and the arts. But I personally, I miss the NBA playoffs. I definitely miss the sport, the actual games.
Well, I mean, maybe you're on the West Coast. That's right.
I am.
So, y'all got time out there. We don't have no time here on the East Coast of New York or whatever. We're trying to get on the subway, and they stopped it running now and late. Look, it's anytime you're trying to help someone, it doesn't matter what your job is. And the problem is that in this country, we don't really pay attention. We have no respect for art or artists.
Right.
None whatsoever.
None.
So if a guy can shoot I used to work with a guy named Ed Shockley. He was 6'8". He was from Philly. He got a scholarship to go to Columbia to play basketball, and he quit Columbia to write poetry. And that was unheard of 30 years ago. And now he's one of the best playwrights in the country because he just followed his own star. Just because you're black doesn't mean you have to play basketball, and just because you're white doesn't mean you have to become a poet or an architect or work on Wall Street. These labels that we put on each other confine us to thinking about each other in a certain way, and we don't. And art, especially books, but painting and music, these are things that allow us to release us to different parts of the world, different parts of the galaxy. And when we sublimate those things and give them labels so that they can be sold by the commercial industrial giants, we are shortchanging ourselves, and that's part of our problem, because our kids don't know history, they don't know music, they don't know art. Most black people don't even know who Sonny Rollins is, and most white people have no idea who Oliver Nelson is, and most black people have no idea who Mozart is or who Virgil Thompson is, and when you don't know who these people are, you shortchange yourself. I mean, everyone should know who Chucho Valdez is. Everyone who should know who Tito Puentes is, because these people made this country great. You talk about make America great. Well, that's history. These people who did historically great things, they're the ones we should be paying attention to. I have tremendous respect for the NBA players. I used to cover. I covered it for a brief period of time. Wonderful. These guys are the most gifted athletes in the world, but if they would speak up and be like LeBron James, I've had a lot more respect for them, because a lot of them are they just want to make the money. They don't really care. So I don't feel sorry for a millionaire who doesn't give back to his community. I'm not interested in his life or his team. I'm only interested in people who want to help people, and I don't care what color they are. I don't care what sport they play or what instrument they play or what art they choose.
Yeah. I think something that's interesting that you said now is about not knowing history. I think that, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but in my mind, I feel like that's sort of by design. We're not taught the history of America, or we're not taught history in a truthful way that includes all these different stories from people of all sorts of different backgrounds in history, and including the art of these movements, and including the artists who are such an integral part of our history. And I think my feeling about it is that it's because if we ever knew the power of the resistance and the power of art in those movements, it would be too revolutionary. It would shake the foundation of this country in a way that the people in power just aren't interested in. And I think that your writing is so connected to your love of history. And I think that that's what makes your books really powerful for people, even if you don't set out to write a book that's going to shake the foundation of America. Your passion for history and artistry combined in a book makes people feel things when they read your books. And I think that that's really a special skill that you have.
Well, thank you for saying that. I mean, just write me a check while you're talking. I love to hear this. No, look, when the New York that's reflected in Deacon King Kong is the New York that I knew. It wasn't the New York I saw in the newspaper. And it's important to remember this, that if you read Pete Hamill, who was a white writer, who is probably the most, in my opinion, a literary giant who never got the credit he deserves. Pete Hamill was a columnist, an Irish-American columnist in New York for years, and he's written several books. You'll find that his New York is not different from the New York I knew.
Sure.
So it's a lot of this has to do with perspective. I don't really think people are as afraid of history as they might, as you and I might think. I think the problem is that they haven't been challenged by history because they've been fed, the mythology that allows the few to govern the many. And that mythology is falling apart now.
Yeah.
And so we have to remake ourselves in the way that the shapers of this country wanted us to do and to be. And we're actually doing it, despite the fact that the powerful interests have thrown everything but the kitchen sink and the kitchen sink against that idea. So we're making progress. It's happening. We can't see it cleanly, but I feel it.
Yeah. I'm interested to see what this time will be written about in 20 years or 30 years, or how people will reflect back on 2020, the first half of 2020. Who knows what the second half even has in store for all of us.
I'm glad to live long enough to see what has happened now. And it's a privilege to be able to earn a living as a writer now at a time when, so many people are struggling and can't even make their rent or their car payment or.
Right. Yeah. This is sort of a silly question, but it's one of my favorites. What is a word that you can never spell correctly on the first try?
Interrupt.
Ooh, good one.
I can't spell interrupt. There's several words that I have trouble with like that. And as I get older, the list grows longer.
Oh, no, I was hoping you were going to tell me it would get shorter because I'm a terrible speller as is. I don't know if I can add to my list.
You grew up at a time when spell check is, part of the game.
Yeah.
And I don't fall to that, I just can't even. But that's one word that I have a hard time with.
Okay. Before we get out of here, I mean, this is really the question that I've been pretending not to want to ask, but I have to ask. Oprah. What is it like to be picked by Oprah? Like, is it even, are you even like, oh my God, it's Oprah? Or are you just like, cool, thanks?
No, I was blown away. My sister saw me on TV when they interviewed me, and she said, you were smiling so much, you look like a moron. That's what she said.
Gotta love siblings.
She said, you look like a moron. But it was great. She called me up. I didn't know how it worked, and I don't pick up my phone. I'm not that good about, that. And the publisher kept saying, listen, there's a call coming to Oprah's magazine. They need to fix something. They kind of hooked me up. They kind of tricked me into picking up my phone that evening. I picked it up. And someone said, James McBride. I said, yes. And she said, this is Oprah Winfrey. And I recognized her voice. I knew she has like that warm voice. So I just, I was silent for like 10 seconds. And then, I don't remember what I said. I tried to be cool. I was really, really flattered that she called me. And I didn't really understand that she was calling me to talk about the Oprah book club. But look, this is a really wonderful thing, and I wish it would happen for every writer, every deserving writer. And there's so many other deserving ones. I just sometimes you just happen to draw. Look, I've drawn enough short straws and had enough bad luck in my life to just be happy for this piece of good fortune. And I look at it like this. I mean, it doesn't mean anything if you don't help somebody. I used to know a guy. One of my first newspaper stories was about a guy named George Inky Wilson. He lived in Newark, Delaware, and that was my first reporting assignment. And George Wilson was an amazing man because he was a black guy. He was a demolition contractor, and what he would do when he tore down houses, he would build houses up in the black community with the bricks and the toilets and the tanks and the heaters and everything, and he built up the black side of Newark, Delaware. And George Wilson said something to me that I'll never forget, because he never had hatred toward anybody. He simply said, what's the fun of having something if you can't share it with somebody? So what's the fun of having all that I have if I can't share it with somebody? So whatever talents and gifts God has given me, and whatever advantages I enjoy now, I try very hard to share them with somebody, because that's really what you're supposed to do.
Yeah. That's such a beautiful note. I think we'll end on that. Everyone at home, James McBride's newest book is called Deacon King Kong. It is the Oprah Book Club pick right now. So make sure you go out and get your copy. I mean, if you've already read it, good, because it's been out for a little bit. So if you've already read it, great. Go pick up one of James's other books. He's got so many and such beautiful writing. James, thank you so much for being here today.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. And everyone else, we will see you in the stacks. Thank you all so much for listening. And thank you to James for being our guest. A special thank you to Ashley Garland over at Riverhead for setting this all up. Remember, the Stacks book club pick for July is Breathe by Imani Perry. Kiese Layman will be back on July 29th to help us discuss that title. Find everything we talked about on today's episode in the link in the show notes. For more from The Stacks, follow us on social media at The Stacks Pod on Instagram and at The Stacks Pod _ on Twitter, and check out our website, thestackspodcast.com. To join the Stacks Pack and support the show, head over to patreon.com/The Stacks. Make sure you're subscribed to this show wherever you get your podcast. And if you're listening through Apple Podcasts, please rate and review this show. Our graphic designer is Robin McBride, and our theme music is from Takira Jis. This show was created and produced by me, Tracy Thomas.